All right, y'all. Welcome back to Marks of a Man podcast, a production of Men Build Men. We're in the studio today with our guest, Dusty Davis. Welcome, Dusty.
Jim, it is a pleasure to be here, bro.
Yeah, this is a good one, man. For me, Dusty's been in my life for about 28, 29 years. I definitely consider him a mentor, discipler, older brother figure. So this one is a little bit nearer and dearer to my heart. And I've been looking forward to this one, D, for a long time. So we're in the studio with our producer, Carlos. If you have not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do so. You can like it, do all that administrative, logistical things necessary on the front end so you can support the channel and you can compliment and affirm the back office work that Carlos does. So, Carlos, thank you for the work that you do and the production. It's well done. Hopefully, our content, our conversation will be worthy of his creation. So here we go. Dusty, you grew up in Auburn, Alabama. Is that correct?
I did.
Yeah, take the listeners through what it was like for you to grow up in like a late 60s, correct?
Born in 63. So this is I turned 63, born in 63. I think that's the golden year or something like that.
I don't know, man. Congrats.
But before we even go into that, I see the flag on your shirt, Jim. And although we didn't serve in the military together, today's Memorial Day, and I feel like you and I went to the trenches. And one of my greatest memories of my whole life was when we served in 9/11 in New York City.
Yep.
Days after the attack on our country.
Yeah, tell the listeners. Yeah, that's good. That's a good way to start it.
Man, we just went deep.
Yeah.
And I think that forged between us some of that relationship of living in the foxholes and living out when there was a lot of uncertainty in the world.
Yep.
And God had given us answers and some tools to bring those to the fire stations and people at Ground Zero and people getting on ferries. And we were ground troops.
I think for the listeners and the viewers, Dusty's referencing 9/11 towers came down. Dusty and I were part of an organization, Campus Crusade for Christ. And there was another group that had quickly assembled a smaller group of people that were willing to respond. As I remember, I thought it was like 36 hours after the tower had fallen that we were boots on the ground. Is that somewhat accurate? Do you remember?
It was wartime. I can't remember all the details. I just remember that nobody was there.
Yep.
The streets, we were getting big trucks. We were driving down the middle of the street. We were able to stay in a nice hotel for like $40 a night or something crazy. And we just had unparalleled spiritual openness and access to New York City like there's never been.
Yeah.
And obviously horrific stuff. And we were able to talk to people that had been in the towers, that had family in the towers.
Yeah. Lots of firemen.
Yeah, families, kids. It was a unique time.
Yeah. We do have some pictures and we'll probably try to move on from that conversation. But I remember some very, very vivid things. I remember my experience was I was freshly married with Heather and just into our marriage. And I remember being a little bit anxious about flying from Alabama to, I think, Hobby, and then taking the train in. And I remember coming up out of the subway at Ground Zero, and
there's still smoke blowing through there.
Smoke still going.
Metals on fire still.
Yeah, it was real.
It's fresh.
Yeah, it's fresh. And I remember literally we coming up out of the subway and walking to the bottom of Ground Zero. There wasn't even caution taped off.
Right.
But I remember sort of watching and visibly seeing firemen extract body parts. And I was like, oh, this is real. Like, this is...
it was a war zone.
Yeah, it was a really unique experience. And we were there to try to communicate the message of and hope of Jesus in the midst of a difficult situation. So, yeah, appreciate you thinking of that memory, bro.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, I think that just forged some of our friendship. Has carried on for the last 20 or 30 years.
Yep.
And I think I got to get a glimpse into the life of Big Jim Nicholas and see that you were a man that had convictions. You were a man of action. And if I was ever needy, I'd want Big Jim Nicholas coming to grab me and throw me over his shoulder and carry me out of the way. carried me out of the burning building. So anyway, I appreciated you ever since that time. Yeah.
I appreciate D. One more quick story, and then we can sort of move on. I remember being married, and to your point about that, it was like a 5-star hotel.
Yeah.
And it was like gold plated everything. And I remember going in there, there's a telephone in the toilet, and I was like telling Heather, like, hey, what is that a bidet? Is that like a, one of those deals? It's like, yeah, that's a bidet, Jim. Like, okay. But it was a weird, we were poor missionaries, man. Man, like $18,000 a year or something, and staying in a 5-star hotel with gold plated everything and terry cloth. And that was a very different experience for me.
No way.
Staying in that type of hospitable conditions, luxury, and then leaving there each morning, going back out to ground zero, to the fire halls, being amongst the smell of death, war, destruction, and trying to find, and it still is fresh in my mind, sort of the differentiation between how to assimilate like what you think is real and what is real, And yeah, man, that was actually when you were a lot of Oregon. Weren't you still working at Oregon at the time, right? Fresh off of Oregon, or
I think we had just moved out to the Northeast.
yeah, man.
To Alabama. Yep.
All right, so back to 63, born in 63, Auburn,
Yep.
and walk the listeners or the viewers through what's like for young Dusty Davis in those formidable years in Auburn.
Yeah, yeah. Sweet little college town, and I remember hanging out at Sandy Flush where you get the soft serve ice cream and lines, and the world was black and white then, and no phones, no computers, very simple.
Yeah.
We rode our bicycles everywhere. I think the first 7-Eleven cropped up. We could get candy down at the 7-Eleven. Yeah, man, it was just an easy life.
Yeah.
And
You got brothers and sisters?
yep, got siblings.
Yeah.
I'm the oldest, have a sister and a brother, and
Yep.
very close family.
Yep.
We were very middle class, lived in a little tiny ranch house, and my dad worked in it wasn't a factory. I guess it was kind of like they had a foundry.
Okay.
Yep. They produced manhole covers and that kind of stuff. So kind of a crazy working environment. We saw poured molten metal.
It's awesome.
And just rough guys covered in soot.
Yeah. You kids were probably allowed to come visit their parents over. Yeah, there's no safety. Mr. Ocean, they would actually like, hey, want to go see your dad in the foundry? No hard hats, nothing that. Fly metal everywhere. Yeah. Bro, so you were you got early into bicycling and it's like skateboard probably wasn't even back a thing then, was it?
A little bit. I think Auburn was interesting because it was a little small country kind of town.
Yeah.
But there was a big university connected with it. And so we had cool music coming in and speakers, and, we were privy to a lot more cultural stuff, even though it was a small town in the center of Alabama.
Yeah.
And so
did the institution or the university have an effect on you as a young guy? I mean, as a kid? I mean, did you spend any time riding your bicycles over there, going to the agricultural part of Auburn, or sneaking into frat parties? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
I was hitting around a little bit.
Yeah. Which I think leads me into a lot of my testimony is that there was kind of this dual life going on, because in some ways I was a little small town guy, president of my youth group at the little Methodist church, Boy Scout leader, all these kind of things. But then there was kind of this double life going on. We snuck over to campus, and it was all kind of stuff you could get into over there.
Yeah, tomfoolery.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah. So good family, Methodist background. Like, when did you come to know Jesus as your Savior? What is that faith journey? How did it begin? And sort of like you're talking about, what did it look like from being a youth group leader to like Dusty inside?
Yeah. That was it was definitely that living that double life of deception, which really brought me to my knees.
Yeah.
And so, there was this one hand of being nice little smiley kid that was doing the right thing and, trying to be a good little Boy Scout. And then there was this side that was deceptive and trying to get into trouble. And part of it was I think I had a little bit of maturity, and because of some leadership stuff, there were older guys that kind of adopted me into their crew.
Mm.
And so when I was a freshman in high school, I was hanging out with the guys that were seniors. And a lot of these guys were the good athletes, they were good leaders in the school, but they were partying hard too, and it was girls and smoking weed and getting the whiskey and beer and all that kind of stuff. And so they kind of took me under wing as their little mascot freshman kid, and I wanted to do what they did. And so I did. And I kind of grew up with that, knowing that I was going onto some wrong tracks, but then I would go back to church and stuff and
Yeah.
feel my heart warmed at church and, like be a part of all that. So there was a real duality.
All right, hold
And I go,
hold a thought on. Like, if you're a listener or viewer, I know Dustin personally. He said he's 63 years old. He's a fantastic grandfather. He's one of the few men that I dearly respect as a husband, as a father. And we're probably going to talk about it. So we're going to find out what has come from his dual lifestyle as a young man to what it is now. There's hope. You can change your behavior. You can change your decisions. God can change you, and you can behave differently. So I just want to take a minute real quick and stop us to say, hey, listen, like, it's good to talk about conversations and it's good to have guests, but it's also good for each of the listeners and guests for us to internalize what we need to change so we can have a different story and we don't feel defeated, right? Yeah. So back to your story of like the double-sided coin, like keep walking us through that, D.
Well, I think that's one of the hallmarks of Men Build Men is that integrity just means that the inside and the outside match, and that you're not living that duality, that double life anymore. And, as a man, you're not trying to hide what you're clicking on. You're not trying to hide any relationships that shouldn't be there. You're not trying to hide any of your bad habits and stuff. And so my senior year of high school, one of the main guys that was a leader in the school, great athlete, great musician, was also kind of the dude that was supplying weed to the school and stuff. So he was double life and hard. But he got busted. And when he got busted, the cops and the folks in the high school and everything said, hey, listen, you're going to juvie unless you narc on everybody where you're getting this weed over at Auburn University or what you're doing. You can do all that or you're gone. Well, he chose to narc and to sell out everybody that he was involved with and stuff. And he had to ship out of town, and he went to a ranch in Texas with his uncle, and he got saved to the bone. I mean, his life radically changed. He became, Jesus is everything to me. And he snuck back into town a few months later, and he knocks on my window. I was living in the enclosed garage in my parents' house. And I was like, dude, because he just disappeared. Everybody was like, where did Trey go? He was gone. And he just left this ghost behind. And he sneaks into town late one night, knocks on my window. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, come here, reappears. We go down to this ball field, and he goes, man, let me tell you what's happened to me. I knew I grew up going to church with you, and we went youth group, all this stuff. But man, there's a different kind of life, and it's sold out to Jesus Christ, and he can forgive you and make you live a life where you're not lying to your parents anymore, no sneaking out, no living the dual life. You can have a life that's pleasing to him. And he left me some old Keith Green album, you said, and some gospel tracks. And shoom, he was out again. Yeah. But we ever say why he came to you? He was on a mission from God. He was
Sneaking back to all
everybody that he had corrupted.
Yeah.
He wanted to come in and say, hey, Jesus is the way.
Yeah.
And we knelt on that ball field under the stars in the Alabama sky that night, and I surrendered my life to the Lord Jesus Christ. And my life changed, Like I dropped all the stuff. I had to drop a bunch of friends. And this was right at the end of my senior year of high school, right as we were getting ready for senior cut night.
Did you know what you were planning to do prior to seeing? Like, were you had already committed to on college, committed to like?
Yeah. Already had a plan.
Okay.
But my plan of the people I was going to hang out with and how I was going to do college radically changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened next, man?
Well, it was pretty wild because that gave me a huge door to start sharing Christ with my friends. You know, I think I had as a senior in high school, I had some say so with the people that were underclassmen and people I hung out with, and also my influence at church and scouts and clubs, you know, and my sports. I ran cross country, and so I had a vast network of friends. And I didn't want to just be quiet, but I was like, and I didn't want to cut off friendships all of a sudden as I was like wrapping up school. But at the same time, I was like, man, something's changed in my life, and I'm not going to go out with the big parties and just call it good. You know, it's like God's changed me.
So you knew there was something markedly different that evening in your life?
Yeah, because I think I'd lived wanting to please God, and I had a biblical background, but it was mixed up in some social gospel ideas. It was mixed up in it was just kind of a put together faith of my own with different youth groupy stuff. And I'd had warm feelings at church camps and retreats and stuff.
Yep.
But I didn't understand grace. I didn't understand that Jesus was the only way. I didn't understand the need for surrender. A lot of those things, I'm sure I'd heard them, but there just comes that time when the Holy Spirit, like, boom, he hits you. And it was kind of unique. I didn't have some big gap in my life at that point. I didn't feel like, but man, there was. And so, peace came over me, and broke up with a girlfriend, and at the big senior cut night party, instead of going to dip into all the kegs and do all that stuff, I took my Jeep. It rained. I pulled people out of the mud and just started serving people, much like what you guys do, like pragmatic, practical, love people where they are, kind of stuff.
Exactly. All right, so let's back up. You ran cross country as a sport. You were part of Boy Scouts. You bicycled. And so where did you...
I was in ROTC.
You were ROTC?
Yeah.
What else did you had going on in those formidable years? Like, what, you're outdoors? I mean, do you spend the majority of your time outdoors?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we were the kids that threw a .22 rifle over our shoulder after school during the winter, and went hunting in the afternoon. We looked for arrowheads out in fields. We were outside all the time. I had a lot of jobs. I worked after school. Like I said,
how did you do academically?
I did okay.
Just enough to basically appease everybody as they get.
I passed. Like B's and C's, get degrees. I wasn't a star student. Wasn't part of student government so much. But I was around, and I was in a lot of clubs and all that kind of jazz.
All right, so you surrendered to Jesus on a ball field. Your next step is you break up with your girl. You're fixing to graduate high school. What happens next?
Yeah, I went to work at a camp that summer for disabled kids.
Okay.
And that was pretty incredible too, because you are serving, you're taking care of very personal needs of kids that can't, that have spina bifida and cerebral palsy. And it was an adventure camp. We were like tying harnesses around kids' waist and using pulleys to pull them up into trees. And
how did you do this? How did you, where's the connection between that?
I had a buddy that had worked at this camp. It was an Easter Seals camp before. And he's like, man, you dig this,
Cool.
But it was really, your eyes had to be off yourself. So, you were taking care of kids' needs. You were changing diapers.
Yeah.
You were, trying to help kids smile. You were pushing wheelchairs around, living outside. I mean, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it took you out of like, my appearance and my social group and how I fit in and all that kind of stuff. And you walked around with a very sober awareness of how blessed you are.
Yeah.
So that was cool transition. And then in the fall, I started at Auburn University.
Okay.
Paid my own way through school, just having jobs. But school was $330 a quarter for tuition back in the day, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are paying 20, 30,000 a year now. I'm like, yeah, I went to school for about $1,000 a year. But
Did you stay at the house?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to.
I hung out with my friends and spent a lot of time at their house, but I rode my bike to class. I lived downstairs at my parents' house.
Yeah.
Ate pork and beans and mac and cheese, and you get by.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, man. So did you in the early part of the college years, did you spend more time on the bike? Is that sort of were you running a lot, or like walk us through? So I know some of your fitness accomplishments, but I'm trying to ask a little bit of questions for the listeners and the viewers to see like how and where and why you developed some of your fitness habits.
Yeah. I found a lot more people at the university than I had in high school to kind of do some offbeat stuff.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. I found these guys that were seniors, that were engineers, and they were believers. And I connected with them, and they started taking me on some long bike trips. And I had some old janky bike, but we, I think our first spring break, they had university press passes, and we went down to Cape Canaveral. We rode our bikes from Auburn all the 500 and something miles down to Cape Canaveral and watched the first space shuttle go off. Yeah, and we had press passes to get in this, certain zones and everything, because we did a report back for the university paper. And that was wild to ride our bicycles down.
I don't know that. So what, like,
We rode 100 miles a day for 5 days.
like, what's your setup? What were you on? Like Kent Speed, old school?
Oh, yeah, it's old school, man, with a little rat trap pedal.
What did you just like literally?
I had to show off sunscreen back in the day. Man. I was just like on this little bike for 100.
Rider wears helmet, did you? No helmets.
We did have little helmets, but they were those little funny hard shirts.
Did you guys like take the back roads or?
Oh yeah. But that was all we had back then. Yeah, we were going by cotton fields and, stopping at little, gas and grocery marts, trying to buy a honey bun
What was the longest bike ride you had been on prior to that?
Oh, probably like 20 miles around the perimeter.
So like when they say, hey, we're going to ride a 500 miles, did they even say that? They were like, hey, just come on.
Yeah, it was just like, hey, here's our new little freshman buddy, and he doesn't complain, so you can come.
So were you intimidated at all, or like, I got this? Like you just knocked out?
I think you just, you don't know what you don't know.
You sound like you got the Cape Canaveral, like you couldn't walk, like your butt bone was just
yeah, my neck was still like this,
Bro, so you rode 500 miles.
But that kind of opened the door to like, you can do hard things.
Yeah.
And you can do things that the average person might not think is very doable.
Enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Later on, I think maybe a year or two later, me and some guys decided we would ride our bikes down to the beach in one day, and that was 220 miles.
And
So
and back?
No. We had our girlfriends drive us back. That was once I met Mary later.
That's a pretty good ride, bro. From
220 miles. Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Is that still the longest ride you did in one day?
Maybe so. I've done a lot of crazy stuff.
Bro, what were y'all clipping off? Like 2022? And I mean, y'all were rolling.
I don't think the speed was the deal. It was just continuation and eating the calories and keep rolling. We're probably eating. I mean, this was old school. We didn't.
Yeah, but I know the way you give me a couple walnuts and I'll keep going for like 400 miles.
Yeah, there was no carbo fuel and gels and all that stuff. It was probably like a stack of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and little Debbie's.
Yeah, dude. Let's go, man. So you rode your bike 220 miles. I was doing freshman year.
No, that was probably like sophomore or something by then.
And by then you were introduced to Mary Lou.
Yes.
You met obviously at the Institute at Auburn.
Yep.
That's where you first met her.
Yep.
Cool.
She was on the water ski team.
Yeah.
And she was the collegiate water ski jump champion, but she had torn up her knee landing a jump really bad.
Yeah.
And so she was on crutches, and I saw this cute little girl, and she was too cool to put her backpack on both shoulders. You know how you had to carry it on one shoulder back in the day? But her backpack kept falling down onto her crutch. I was like, I think she needs a little help.
Yes, she does.
Hey, can I carry that for you? Yes. Yeah. I started, she had this little beach cruiser bike that had some pegs on it, buddy pegs we'd put on it. And I would ride her to class on the handlebars of my bike.
Yes.
Yeah.
On her bike.
Yeah, on her little beach cruiser.
That's
single speed.
That's a step right there. Like when you start a dating relationship, like, all right, maybe you have to teach us how you went from dating a girl, taking over her bike to pedaling her bike for her riding on the front handlebars, right?
Yeah.
There's probably some people listening to this that have no idea.
Well, she was tough enough to pedal me on the bars, but for real,
Right on.
she'll do it with me. Yeah.
So you intentionally put the buddy pegs on the front?
Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it had a little foam on the handlebar, those big wide bars.
That's crazy. And she had a beach cruiser.
Yeah, we signed up for the same classes. So
I'm sure you signed up for whatever she was.
exactly. Yeah.
So you're at Auburn, you meet Mary Lou, who ultimately becomes your wife. You're biking a lot. What else are you?
Well, this was the beginning of triathlons.
Okay.
They were just starting in the early 80s.
Okay.
And so we and some of our buddies formed the first triathlon club. It was just a little club sport. But we gathered some of the runners from Auburn, some swimmers from Auburn, a handful of crazy bike people, and, still like the breaking away days. Cyclists were kind of like, what are you wearing? What's that little black tight shorts you got on, And
Yeah, I know you personally, dude. I mean, I know you can run and bike, but we haven't done a whole lot of swimming together. Is that sort of like your weaker of the three disciplines?
yeah,
Is that something that you like, hey, I can do these other two like pretty well, but when you first started getting into try, or is it like, whatever, I'm just going to go out and get after it?
yeah, definitely my weaker
Yeah.
thing, but I picked it up a little more. I became a water safety instructor, and so I took swim classes as part of being at Auburn, which helped me do laps because I just had to during class. And then we started swimming in some lakes and doing some open water stuff.
When did you get into doing the water scene?
Swimming.
In college, when you got into the oil water kayaking scene, was that later?
Yeah. So we worked for the camp for the disabled kids for maybe a summer or two. And then I transitioned to this high adventure, high dollar, fancy boys camp up there in the mountains of North Carolina.
Okay.
And ended up having a long career there. I worked there once I graduated.
Yeah.
But that was whitewater kayaking, rock climbing. I was mentored by some of the best in the area, and they really started taking me to, do some serious rock climbing.
So you started spending time in the summers at the boys' camp while you were participating in the track club at Auburn.
Yep.
And Mary Lou, y'all were doing it together at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was our whole friend group.
Was the try group?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know Mary Lou did some tries, obviously, with y'all.
She did.
Yeah. Cool. So what else was happening on those college years? I mean, you're dating your girl, you're finishing up. Did you feel like you had a plan on what you were going to do next? And like, what was your belief in Jesus? How was that changing your life in those college years?
Yes. Yeah. Good question. I think we had a lot of mix with people that weren't believers because the adventure athletes were kind of an independent group.
Yeah.
And they were, we were listening to the Police and all kind of rock and roll stuff and having dance parties. But then as believers, we chose not to drink or do any of that kind of stuff. And we weren't going to go home with people.
Yep.
So we're making good moral choices, but we were having fun with our friends too and road tripping down. There became a series of these triathlons, and we jumped into the series, and we would go to Tampa, Florida, or Atlanta, or all over.
You're driving to the events before you participate, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And usually like spending the night in your car
I
or
was
the
just about to ask you, what were you and Mary Lou driving? Like, what kind of, this was like in the 70s. So we all,
early 80s. You're all years in. Yep.
El Caminos.
My buddy did have an El Camino. It's the first time I went 100 miles an hour in a car.
Yeah, seriously.
Mary Lou had a Volkswagen Rabbit convertible.
Yeah.
We called it the Beatty carriage
Okay.
because it looked like a little Beatty carriage. And she always had the beach cruiser or a windsurfer or jump skis or something hanging out of the back of it.
in the back seat, like
Hanging out, literally hanging out.
Yeah.
And it was usually wet and moldy because she'd left the top down and the shower had hit.
Oh, yeah.
And there were like pizza boxes, where your feet should go. And, her school books would be disheveled somewhere in the car. And,
Yeah.
we had a good time.
That's awesome.
A lot of good memories.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were part of the ministry. Crew had something going at the time, and we went to Christmas conference with them, and we were in some small groups. But then we were hanging out with all our triathlon and our sports buddies and camp friends and everything too. So mixing it up with the non-believing crowd too. I think our friend group wasn't as much our Christian group. It was like we went to weekly Bible studies and stuff to get fed.
Yeah.
But I think our friend group were our sports, and our outdoor adventure buddies.
At that point in your life, man, do you remember one or two men being pivotal, formidable, important, monumental? Like, at that, step back for a second and start thinking about maybe one or two men in your life there at that age. What do you recall about those type of men?
Honestly, I think our peers were more important. I think, when I look back at it now, I think I had some pride that was still stuck in my heart. And I remember thinking, yeah, I don't want to meet with some dude necessarily. And I didn't allow mentors to really speak deeply into my life. It was more like I was just busy with friends, the endurance sports, stuff at college. I had part-time jobs too. I was still trying to, work some.
Yeah.
One of my jobs was at like 4:30 or 5 in the morning, I'd hop in this guy's Jeep. I'd put my bike on the back of his Jeep bike rack. We would go to Lake Martin to Stillwaters, and we worked on the golf course, and I would change the cups and the tees, empty trash cans, and we would work from 6 a.m. till about 11:30 or noon. He would drive back. I would ride my bike back to campus, and I had my classes in the afternoon.
How far was that?
It's like 40-something miles. Yeah. 40 miles. Yeah. Yeah, 5 days a week. Yeah. And so that was part of my training. So began to have a
40-mile ride.
Yeah, so that checked my bike off for the day, and then I still needed to swim and run. Yeah. So, just some crazy stuff like that.
Don't you think, like, the reason I ask that question is, don't you think that sometimes as men, like you said, pride, we trust too much in ourselves. Sometimes success is a hindrance for us. Like, we feel like we don't need any help. We don't want anybody to help us. I feel like, answering my own question, I've met a lot of younger guys that you offer yourself to them.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are as two older men currently today having a conversation. The intent is that someone might hear some of these things and apply them to their lives so they don't need to have to go through some of the problems, or maybe apply some of the things that we're suggesting.
Yeah.
And they probably don't. I just feel like dudes are sometimes like just hard-headed.
Yeah.
And like you said, pride for like, nah, I got this.
I think I was right there.
Right?
And I appreciated the guys that led the ministries on campus and stuff. And occasionally we'd still meet at I don't think coffee shops were even a thing, but it was like we met at McDonald's or something,
Yeah.
in a booth at McDonald's. And I appreciated those guys, but I don't think I was willing to submit myself to them or say, hey, let's meet every week, or I want to really let you into my life and my struggles, and don't do what I did. Yeah, realize that some wisdom and
Yeah.
some older guys could speak into your life and really offer some perspective and mentoring that I was a little
Yep.
prideful to take at the time.
Yep. Appreciate your honesty on that. So like you're going to some high adventure camps during the summers and you're finishing up your college career. You're
Mhm.
I'm sure you're uh serious about pursuing, this pretty young gal, and like you decide, hey, I'm going to go full time to work at the camp. Is that the next transition in your life once upon graduation from college?
Right.
Is that so?
Yep.
Walk us through a little bit more the details of like finishing up college, where you're at in your dating relationship, why you chose to take a job, and boom,
Yeah.
what happens
Yeah.
next?
I think that the camp, I realized, really influenced kids a lot because you pull a kid out of his home environment, away from his little school buddies, and you make him do hard things, or he gets to choose to do hard things. He goes on a 5-day hike. He has to learn to navigate a whitewater river. He has to get along with 7 other boys in a tight, confined little cabin and share meals. He has to not eat snacks between meals. He gets hungry. He has to learn how to ride a horse, learn how to shoot a bow.
Yep.
Like just he's acquiring skills, but under some pressure to do hard things
Yep.
and not be coddled
Yep.
by his folks,
Yep.
not go to the country club pool and
Yeah.
order as much Slurpees as he wants to. He's pulled out of that environment.
Yeah.
And I saw guys really change and kids rise to the challenge. And some of them got homesick and hurt and kind of caved inside. But most of them made friends and were challenged and learned some courage
Yeah.
to jump off the high dive platform,
Yeah.
to get after it.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting somehow like society changes it because of out of concern? Like, I mean, there are no more high dives,
Man,
and there's platform diving at sanctioned college, or Olympics, but it seems like
you don't see them out at a camp anymore.
where they looking at, 30-foot public pools, like, hey man, people are,
Risk adverse,
Mhm.
litigation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think part of what you're talking about is that is part of what changes a society.
Yeah.
And unfortunately changes a crop of young men of not experiencing. I think
Mm.
what you just said hit me hard is them choosing
Mhm.
to do something hard
Yeah.
versus being made to do something.
Right.
Sometimes we don't have the authority. And I think like, we'll probably end up talking a little bit about as fathers, we have this authority to make our children do
Mm.
things. As mentors, as men build men, Dusty's an advisor of Men Build Men. Not sure I announced that, but he has obviously mentored me, discipled me, influencing previously, and continues to influence me. And
And you mean to
yeah, and
things
Men Build
goes both ways.
goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
So we want to continue to offer ourselves, and the organization wants to offer ourselves to mentor, disciple, advise, counsel, but at the same time, sometimes young guys have to
Mhm.
choose to do hard things, choose to listen, choose to surrender, right? And I think that that's one mark that we're trying to do as an organization here is to say, hey, we'll do it alongside you.
Mhm.
We're not just going to bark orders and make you go off this high dive. That's one thing that I've always respected about you is, and I still do, is like, if there's a class 5 whitewater to run, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I am going to go first. You have the choice to follow my, path.
Or I'll make fun of you relentlessly.
Yeah, dude. So guys don't choose to do hard things. You had a willingness in your heart to choose to take an environment where you had the opportunity to present for young boys to do hard things, right? And that was now your profession. How quickly did you and Mary Lou marry after y'all graduated college?
Yeah. Well, it was a unique job because I moved to the camp,
Okay.
which is on, 1,000 acres on this mountaintop in North Carolina. Fantastic, beautiful facility. But I lived in a tiny little A-frame, and I was the only one up there during a lot of the off season because my job was to recruit staff at colleges and to recruit campers. You know, we had a little movie that we went around and showed and everything. So it was kind of a lonely existence during the off season. Summer was as fun as it can be.
Right.
Like just game on every minute from dawn till past dark, you know, is game on. But the winter up there was surprisingly quiet and lonely, and a camp gets kind of eerily quiet when all the cabins are there. And I started thinking a lot more about that cute little blonde-headed girl.
Sure you did.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, even though we're the same age, I graduated a little bit early. I kind of pushed my school fast. She was on the long track.
Well, you were paying for Yuri, and she probably was not paying for.
She had Daddy Warbucks paying for hers, and so she was in the hurriest. But
That's where
she changed her major about 6 times. So did she went from art to recreation to
whatever keeps me skiing longer.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And so it took her an extra year.
Yeah.
And she ended up hanging out with my kid brother and all our same buddies that were still lingering around Auburn. They became her friend group. So
Yeah.
I was kind of jealous because I was out working, you know,
Yeah.
and they were still having all the same fun hanging around campus. So, yeah, I think we started writing letters. So this was, I mean, I had technology still wasn't up then.
Yep.
I had a payphone hanging on the wall at the dining hall. So I'd walk from my little A-frame cabin up in the woods and have to punch in and use a little credit card to make calls, and hopefully she would answer.
Yeah.
And that's how you communicated, or you wrote letters. In fact, we were cleaning out stuff not too long ago and found a whole stack of letters that we had written to each other. Yeah, she went to race bikes with AIA in Europe on an all-guys team. Yep, she did that for a while. She went with the National Outdoor Leadership School to Wyoming on a training thing for a month. She had all kind of adventures going on, but we stayed in communication. And then after she graduated, we got married that fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
And once you got married, like, all right, we're gonna stay at the camp, or like, what was the next phase of your life, bro?
Yeah, no, I knew the off season in camp wouldn't be any place for her. She'd be lonely. We wanted to be part of a church and a community and everything. So I moved back to Alabama. She began working for her dad, who's an oral surgeon, and really a cool job. She got to assist in surgeries, and there again, in the old days, there weren't as many regulations. She didn't have any kind of bars or any credentials or anything, but he was like, here, hold this, you know, do that. Hey, here, finish this one up while I go to the next room, you know. So she got a great experience of doing that. I went to work for a construction company building a big church in town, and it was man work in the ditches, in the trenches, working hard.
Yeah.
And I wasn't adverse to hard work, but this was, I mean, when you're with your shovel all day or a grinder or floating out concrete, I mean, you are a tired boy. And often we didn't find out until Friday afternoon when they were handing out the paychecks.
You had to work the next day?
Saturday morning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you just kind of stood there
Yep.
after Billy Mack handed out the checks.
Yep.
And he said one of two things. When he was at the work trailer standing up on this platform, everybody in their blue hard hats. He's like, he either said Monday or in the morning.
Yep.
And then you had to cancel all your Saturday plans, show up at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. So it was a contrast from the college. Let's do whatever we want to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well,
Let's go swimming, ride our bikes, whatever. So
yeah.
learned some work ethic though.
When did you carry the torch?
Yeah.
And how did you want to get us into that?
That's a metaphorical torch of life, or the real torch, the real Olympic torch.
The Olympic torch. You want to? It was at a couple years in the future, right?
Yeah, we had.
So we're getting there. Okay.
Yeah, but we had come on staff with a ministry organization called Athletes in Action, which is where
In Birmingham.
you and I met.
So y'all are living in Birmingham.
We were raising our support there, but then our assignment was the University of Oregon.
All right,
Oregon.
So Mary Lou goes back. She's assisting her father in the oral surgery business. You're working construction.
Yeah.
Um,
And starting to raise support.
okay,
Because we knew that we were called.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So walk us through a little bit of like, all right, like you got married. We both have relationship with Jesus. We both want to do what God tells us to do, but like walk us through where this whole calling thing came from and where it's coming from.
Yeah. So, I know one of your hallmarks at Men Build Men is this generational flourishing, like looking to senior men and senior people that often our culture kind of pushes away because they're old and gray and,
Don't know anything.
don't know anything. They're not hip on us. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, so Mary Lou's dad, who was a really strong believer and really given into missions and everything, when I was working at the camp, he said, "Hey, I know these two old ladies that are in their 80s that were pioneer missionaries in Africa that saw God do amazing, miraculous things, and they live not too far from your camp. When Mary Lou comes to visit you, you guys should go see Mary and Betty." They were with Africa Inland Mission in like the 70s and 80s and maybe even the 60s.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't want to go talk to these ladies, man. Let's go paddle the river. Let's go, but I wanted to stay on the good side of my girlfriend's dad.
Whatever it took.
If Dr. Bug says to do something, you're like, I guess we ought to do that. So on a Sunday afternoon, we go have a meeting with Mary and Betty, and it changed my life. We sat down with these ladies, and they told stories like Elijah kind of stories, and Elijah and, like working in villages and Muslims coming with machine guns to mow down a village and looking like they had seen balls of fire and angels and turning around and getting in their big trucks and just leaving because of God's protection. And they told us story after story. And at the end of our time with Mary and Betty, these two broken-bodied old missionary ladies, they said, God calls everybody to go.
Mm.
If you're going to stay, you better have a call from God to stay. And we were like, we were like, okay. And I think just that paradigm of we're called to go. And so Mary Lou and I were shaking. We were like, hey, I feel like we're getting called into ministry right here with these two antique old broken-bodied ladies. One of them's on a walker, and they've been captured by the Nazis and held captive for a while. They had stories to tell that were crazy, and they were still living, and they had passed this baton on to us as this idealistic little happy couple,
Yeah.
So that was kind of our initial call into like ministry. And they didn't specify what to do or anything like that, but yeah.
Like, all right, we're doing something here.
We're doing something.
So Mary Lou had ridden Bikes with Athletes in Action, and that was sort of just the next sort of where you were already part of it. So you said, hey, we're going to now make this our calling, our profession. We're going to.
Yeah, initially we were like, okay, well, we'll go to Africa and help carry on what they were doing. But then we got some wise counsel, like, Dusty, you're still a little young in your faith. You guys are going to be newly married. You got to raise support.
Yep.
That's a big step.
Yep.
Why don't you pull it back in a little bit,
Yep.
Get some training, get some stateside, get some experience, and then maybe you can, if you're called to overseas still or whatever, which was very good counsel, and we listened, and thankfully we're not divorced because we went over. Her dad.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, man.
Yeah. That's when we combined kind of our zeal for sports and athletics and adventure stuff with ministry. And I think that was kind of the marriage that has been our lifelong.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it is and still is.
Yep.
And still very much is, which is cool for the listener and the viewer to see, like, you're still doing it. What is your, we'll keep going, but like, what is your social handle? You're on Instagram and Facebook. If people want to follow you, connect with you, where do they find you? Dusty_Davis or what?
Yep. On Instagram. Don't check my Facebook very much. It just got political and ads. Yeah, Instagram.
Dusty_Davis.
Yep.
Okay.
We're as of the last few years, I've been using a social tool called Strava. Have you ever heard of Strava?
You told me about it, but I'm not on it.
Yeah. Basically, it's you log your workouts or your races or your adventures or whatever, and it's non-political. There's no ads. There's no, and it's just kind of like you can give thumbs up to people, and
Where do they find your Strava? Dusty Davis?
Dusty Davis.
Yeah, Dusty Davis and Strava.
Yeah.
It's a good point for me to say, hey, listen, haven't subscribed to the channel, do it, do your administrative duty. I'm supposed to tell y'all to do this from the producer, so do it, get it done. Go follow Dusty on Strava. So you get married, you come back to Birmingham, you feel called to move into that, all right, we're going to join an organization that facilitates, lets us participate in outdoor athletic events. We're also going to get an opportunity to sort of try to segue and tell people about Jesus. And then you were making a comment that you got assignment for the University of Oregon. Is that correct?
Yep.
So,
long way from Alabama, kids.
Yeah, dude. So like, you just pack the car, pack the truck, like pack all your gear, your bike, your kayaks. What'd you do?
That's what we did. Yeah. I mean, or would you do clampets? You know, it's like,
Darn it. Yeah. Jefferson, we had Sanford and Son.
Yeah. We had this old beat up Volvo station wagon that was stick shift and had crank down windows and hardly any air conditioning at all. I mean, it might have got a little cool. That was about it. And little boxy thing. They had a rack on top for the kayaks, a rack on the back for the bikes. And yeah, that's about all we had. Some record albums.
Was it 8-track, bro, or was it cassette?
I think we had moved into the cassette world, thank the Lord.
All right. Those 8-tracks took up a lot of space, dude, bro. The whole package of cassettes, you know?
Yeah. Mixtape.
So, bro, what was like, had you gone to Oregon before, like on a check it out trip, or like, hey, you got your, so you're like, all right, we're going to Utah.
It was cost prohibitive and we were broke just trying to make it. And
yeah,
we were like, let's go when it's time to go. And we'd raised our financial support, and that was challenging, of course. You know, thank the Lord for Maylee's dad.
Yep.
He had great contacts at the church that they went to, and he was just kind of a pillar of the Christian community of the time. And
kind of network.
Yeah. And he and his wife had been teaching lay institutes for evangelism through Campus Crusade for Christ, and they were great supporters of a lot of people. And so they had a really solid network. I had zero contacts. He helped feed us. Here's a list of my friends that you can call on.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. Yeah, he set us up for sure.
Life is and continues to be who you know. And it's another good point of a lesson about, I think that's something that I am continuing to try to learn even today at 51 is, one, to be intentional about introducing myself to new people each and every day. That's one of the things I was telling you before we started recording this, and I've been working on it. One of Men Build Men's things that I'd like to improve upon myself and us as an organization and the guys who participate in this organization is to be intentional of introducing ourselves to at least one new person per day.
Cool.
And if you did that, at the end of the year, you could meet 365 different people. And you have no idea where those connections might go. It's like, you know how it used to be like, I was about to use a word, but I caught myself on air not using it. When I judged someone, say, hey, it's a spider web, or whatever the metaphor is, I didn't see it. But the older I've gotten is really, we're all connected here. Your father-in-law introduces you to this person who can introduce you to these type of people. Your father-in-law introducced you to these two older ladies who had an effect, and that's how it is. That's how it is. And I think like that's something that I'm trying to learn and improve upon myself as one, I need to stop doing to accomplish Jim's agenda and be more willing to be used by God to say, hey, I might be in this space at this time, which will never happen again. Never.
Yeah.
Right. And
Well, Jesus chose disciples that, you know, different backgrounds, different personalities, different, you know, everything, socioeconomic groups. And I think God's love, his message, his call to us is just, you never know how it's going to be disseminated.
yeah,
But a lot of times in unlikely scenarios, you know? So
true. So
like two really old ladies,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
And doing what you didn't want to do. I do not want to do this. I want to go paddle river. I want to go climb this face.
Yeah.
But I think what you said in jest and joking was, yeah, you want to stay on the good side of your follow, but you also want to be respectful of how, for me, I know you, but I'm also listening as a listener to your story and your testimony is, to me, that's, you had a willingness to be submissive to that authority. And if you had said, screw it, man, I don't care what my father says. I'm out. That pride that you alluded to as a high school or early college guy, and a couple short years later, how that maturity and then respect for a man that lives a certain way. When I was asking you, hey, who are those men? Maybe if I had asked that question then, who were some men? Maybe you would have said, hey, Bill Buck, because you had an opportunity to observe how, and when he told you to do this, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And look how your willingness to submit yourself to an older man change your life for the better. I think that's the point that we're trying to make here with the podcast is, yeah, we're trying to talk about the marks of Jesus Christ, and he is the ultimate man, but we're also trying to talk about how men behave and call other younger men to behave to a different standard.
Yeah.
And part of that is to be respectful and to do what we ask you to do, because we're not doing it for like our good. It's like, man, bro, he was telling you to do something because it might be for your benefit, not his.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So,
He's a man of action for sure.
right. And
I see a lot of the traits that you carry on, Jim, like Dr. Buck's, because when he got passionate about telling a certain group of people, the other dentist, about Jesus, or if he saw something that was unjust, he didn't just stand by. He sunk his teeth into it. He was a bulldog.
Yeah.
And I see that in your life too. Like when you see something, whether it's Cartersville politics or something in a school system or whatever, you don't just stand by and go, well, that's terrible. You sink your teeth into it and you get after it. And I think that's how this ministry was born.
Yeah, right on.
Because you saw young men growing up, some fatherless or without strong figures and without believing men in their life. And you went, you know what? Even though I've got daughters and a busy business and I could go over into these lanes, you went, I don't think this is right. Yeah. I'm not going to stand by idly. I want to choose to make a difference.
That's right.
In this community and broadly. And so
Be a man of action.
Man of action.
Be
That's what you're doing.
Be a man of action. That's right.
Yeah.
So
Now you've got a team of guys around you.
It's awesome, man.
You're making it happen.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Fantastic producer.
Yeah.
Carlos is making behind the scenes, right, Carlos? Appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
He probably is not going to put his information, but you can find at Newton Films. You can find him. That's where you can find him. Anyways, if you haven't subscribed, get to it. Hit the red button. So you're driving to Eugene.
Yeah.
You're married. Are y'all both? I'm trying not to like inject my understanding of y'all's relationship, and I'm trying to ask legitimate questions for a good conversation. But I would think that the two of you would be excited about you moving to Oregon and it being paddle, windsurfing, climbing, outdoorsy. Like it wasn't just like, hey, we have to go to Arizona, Sedona, even though some cool things in Sedona. Were you guys genuinely excited a little bit about the geographical area that you would be moving to because of the outdoor?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I honestly, you know, back in the day, when you signed on to be a missionary, you didn't, I think we were able to fill out, these are my
Good.
choices I would like to do ministry wise or whatever, but you weren't guaranteed it. And I think we were at staff training and they gave us a slip of paper, like in an envelope
Oh, yeah.
that you got. And it was like, here's your assignment. And then all of a sudden you're like, we're moving to Oregon. All right. So I think we were young, idealistic, naive, green, newlyweds, still kind of bickering over stuff, like hitting our first bumps in the road. And, so it was all of that mixed together.
Yeah.
And we didn't know a soul. I think we met one of the staff guys at staff training, but only met with them for a minute, like, hey, you're our new staff. You're going to report in, this time of year and et cetera, et cetera. We'll try to help you find a place to stay.
Did you have a place? Did you have a house picked out, or
We lived with one of the staff couples for a little bit. Then we got a little janky apartment somewhere. Yeah.
So you're married, you moved to Eugene, Oregon. You're working for Campus Creds for Christ, the athletic ministry, Athletes in Action, and you're trying to make an attempt to build relationships to tell people about how to have a relationship with Jesus, right?
Yep.
Is that sort of an accurate assessment of like, boom, what year was that?
Yeah, that would have been 1987.
Wow.
Yeah.
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 So what happens in 1987 and 1980?
Well,
keep walking us through it.
Yeah, I think we needed to catch up on, when you grow up in the Southeast, your Oregon is like, what is that? Like, Gentle Ben was a show about a bear and a boy in Oregon, or I didn't even know if it was Washington or Oregon was on top, like I had to break out my atlas to see where Oregon was. I knew it had the Pacific coast, but I knew it was a bunch of trees, and I knew the college was like Grateful Dead stuff was going on, a lot of hippies.
Was Nike a thing yet?
Had just kind of coming onto the scene bigger.
Good.
Nike was growing. I knew there was a big track and field team. Steve Prefontaine.
He was there?
Yeah. No, he wasn't there. He'd already died.
Okay.
He killed himself drunk driving. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But a hero of the day, and rightly so, held every American distance record on the track. The movies about him, Fire on the Track.
I did not know he
Prefontaine.
with drunk driving.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a hard charging athlete and partier. Yeah, he had a little convertible and flipped his convertible right by this rock near campus, going to a party after a track meet. And that rock is still where high school students and college students go as a memorial, and they leave their shoes that they once stayed in, or their state medal from their 200 or their 10K or whatever. And it's like this memorial area right by this rock near campus. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Preeves Rock.
Yeah. Interesting.
So there's a whole culture in the Northwest that we had to learn. And we showed up with our little Southern accents and had to learn a lot, Yeah.
Would you guys quickly get into first biking, kayaking, hiking, swimming, church? How'd y'all get connected?
Yeah, we were trying to assimilate, and we both gravitated into riding bikes a little more. It was too cold to swim. We arrived there for fall, and if you know about Oregon, it's like dry and beautiful all summer, but then in the fall, the rain starts to hit because all these coastal rains come in. They hit this coastal range of mountains, and then it just kind of mists and rains, and it's kind of shadowy and dark and kind of moderate 50s every day, all during the winter. And you don't see the sun a lot. And so a lot of people, it's interesting because it's such a distance running culture, an outdoor culture, but you had to go over the mountains the other way to the Cascades to find the sunshine.
Interesting.
Yeah, but we would do that every weekend if we could. We'd go find a little sunshine in the high desert over by Bend, Oregon, and go rock climbing and everything. But I got into cycling out there and racing, and You did the Tuesday night sprint ride, and this Thursday night was jokingly called the World Championships because everybody took it so serious. Who won the sprints of the night, that kind of thing.
How far was the sprint?
A lot of times it would be to the stop ahead sign because you wanted to stop before the actual stop sign so you didn't run the crossroads and get killed. But you'd sprint to the cow, the cattle sign that you see on the country. We sprint to the cow sign.
So predetermined, like, hey, we're literally going to sprint.
Yeah, everybody knew when it was roughly going to start, and then it would heat up. And then, when you got to that sign, the winner would throw its hands.
Do you remember what your setup was? Now we're fixing to talk a little bit of technical conversation. Do you remember what your setup was at that time? With a 10 speed, 15 speed, 18 speed?
Probably like 10, 12 speed.
'Cause, I mean, the technology had probably not come on.
No, it was still manual shift the lever down here, and
Literally the wire cable deal, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Brakes were still cantilever, no disc brakes by hand. So you're like, if it's raining, you're like pulling them as hard as you can pull them, going, okay, Lord, help me stop out here. And you throw your chain, if you weren't shifting carefully, and flat tires were a thing, So
Yeah, I think we probably could have an independent conversation just on cycling, and you advising and connecting the potential listeners or viewers on just cycling. But if there currently is anyone that's listening that has an interest in cycling or triathlon, like what are some, obviously find you on Strava and they can connect and you can send them links individually. But if they just broadly, like, how would you recommend? Is there a cycling association, or what if you've sparked somebody's interest about cycling? Where would they go next? Get in a club, local club, Google it?
yeah, like most of the bike shops in a town will host we host a Tuesday night ride or whatever. And then a lot of those rides will break into different speed groups.
Yeah.
And so like where I live now in Birmingham, Alabama, you can find a group ride on Tuesdays, on Wednesdays, on Thursdays. And a lot of times just walking into the dominant bike shops and saying, hey, I'm about this speed, or I'm just getting started. What's a good group ride for me to go on? Because obviously the roads are dangerous these days, and, everybody is on their phones, and it's a good way to get killed.
Yeah.
And so, but if you're with a group, everybody's got the little flashy lights, and you're seeing, you're you're slowing down the traffic for a minute, and they know the routes.
So 1988, you're in Oregon. You're trying to figure out what's going on. You're participating in sprints on Tuesdays and Thursdays and cycling this sort of, not your gig, but you're doing this more actively. Is that fair assessment?
Yeah.
Yeah. And keep walking us through like where you're at with where you at with your faith.
Yeah.
Like, what's it look like in 1988 for Dusty to try to be a born again, Bible believing follower of Jesus?
Yeah. Good question. I think that I didn't want to get dropped. And if you know about cycling, everything's about staying in the group because you break the wind together as a team, and there's all the dynamics that go on in the group called the peloton. And those first few rides, man, they would go over a steep hill or something like that, and you just get shelled off the back. And then you're riding by yourself on the country road, or till you can regroup with some of the other stragglers. And I didn't like that.
So can I interrupt?
Yeah.
I didn't know this, that the word peloton, it's describing the group of bikemen, of the cyclists.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So that's like if you watch the Tour de France.
So it's the peloton, like that. Is that like the lead group?
That's the group. Yeah. And then you have little breakaway groups that try to shoot off and see if they can win ahead of the group. But the group always has power, because I think about 80% of your energy goes into breaking the wind. Even if it's not a headwind day, the group dynamic is always faster than the individual. So there must be a spiritual principle, hasn't there, somewhere? I'm just guessing.
Did I ever tell you about the time that I tried to break off? I was in a 100-mile ride.
No.
Yeah, dude. And just a real quick story, so Dusty can appreciate this. Yeah, I'm in like a 100-mile ride or something, and you know how it is, man. Like you're late, you're getting there, And I'm like trying to get jocked up, and for whatever apparent reason, I was just rushed and I was just really scatterbrained. And I think I incorrectly positioned myself or either cut through or something. The race was about to start. And as I recall, I think I went under a rope or something and I found myself at the starting line when everyone took off. And at that point, I put my clips in. I'm not tremendously balanced. And there was just a wave of people behind me. And I was like, oh no. So like, here I go, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like in the start of all these excellent riders. And I don't know, maybe it's 2 or 3 miles. And I experienced a little bit what you said, because I'm like 2 or 3 or 4 miles into it. And I'm like, I don't even feel like I've even exerted any energy.
You're being carried along.
Yeah, I'm just being sucked. I'm just being sucked along by the whole group.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, dude, I feel awesome. And then I don't know, mile 4 or something like that, we had this long downhill. And guys were coming out of the group. And I got like the overly excited. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to take lead. So well,
you are a bigger man, so your weight versus like the little 150-pound cyclist, you go downhill really well, don't you?
That's not like, bro. So here we go. I was like, oh, I'm going. So I turned it up as large as crank, and I was like, I'm going for it. And I think I remember, like, this is how I remembered. I think I looked down for a brief second because I was nervous, because I was like, I'm cooking. I've never been going to space.
Any tires, big man.
And I think I was like 38 or 40 or something like that. We were cooking.
Yeah.
Which is like, I'm going pretty fast. And then it like sort of got to this bottom of the trench, the hill. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm out front. I'm out front of this road race with the lead group. And now I'm out front, right?
We're about to climb a hill.
We're about to climb a hill. And
my pectoral muscles and my biceps and my quads don't climb as well as they descend.
So I was like, here I go. And I gave effort to it. And I was like, I'm smoked. Like, I'm done. I'm done, right? And I was like, how do I get out of the way for all these other guys? Because at that point, I don't want to cause a major disaster,
right,
for anybody else.
Yeah.
And I think I was maybe like mile 5.5 or something into it. Somehow I got out of the way.
Yeah.
But
I was taking out the peloton.
Correct. You know, I'm smoked for the rest of the 100-mile ride, of the 194 miles left to go. Something.
Yeah.
And it was disastrous for me to even finish that race.
Alone.
Yeah. It taught me a tremendous amount about all the things that we could probably break down in that very short story about the group, the spiritual metaphors that you just referenced, the things that I could share out of that. The point of me bringing it up is, one, just to tell that story, but two, maybe try to draw some, like, we have to go through those negative experiences in our life sometimes so we can more accurately understand the pride inside of us and how maybe God allows some humility to be interjected into our lives.
Sure.
To better position us.
Yeah.
To learn, if you will.
Yeah.
So find myself in the peloton, know my position, and maybe not try to go out ahead and lead, but just be fine to be carried along by the group, right? So you don't want to get left behind in Oregon. So you were about to say, what did you do so you didn't get left behind by the peloton?
Yeah.
On Tuesdays and Thursday sprints. Back to Dusty's story.
Yeah, I think I began to observe, okay, who are the leaders out here? Who's winning the sprints? Sometimes it was the guys with the loudest mouth. Sometimes it was just the quiet guys that were the leaders. And I started to trade numbers with them. Of course, it was still landlines. We still didn't have cell phones. But like, hey, will you help me a little bit? Or let's go out I need to go for a ride with you on Monday. Or teach me some of the dynamics of the pack and how to know when to wait in line and to kind of hide in the back and when to launch out. And because there's a lot of strategy to it. You know, it's a lot of strategy. It's not just the strongest guy that always wins the race. So I wanted to be a student of that. I think I got a better bike, you know, some of my equipment upped that, started looking at nutrition a little bit, you know, just all those things that play into getting stronger, faster, better. And slowly over time became one of the players.
Can you recall in your experience, well, this wasn't a paid circuit, right? These people that but do you feel like the guys that you reached out to were either receptive and be willing to help you, or was you met with like opposition, like absolutely not, I'm not going to help you type of thing?
Yeah.
Like what I'm trying to draw out.
Yeah, no, mostly they're pretty open, and they I was this green new kid from Alabama,
Yeah.
but showed some promise, and he seemed sincere. He's not trying to be a butt, or whatever. Because there's a lot of arrogance when, I guess most sports are like that.
Yeah.
Bike racers, it's funny because road racers are a lot different than the mountain bikers, and those are different than triathletes. And there's all these subdivisions of different, genres of cycling, like with a lot of different sports. But the road racers were a little bit more aloof and a little more arrogant than, the mountain bikers are all just groovy hippie dudes.
That was mountain biking probably didn't become a thing until much later.
Yeah, it was kind of still really new.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
So
wasn't.
you weren't on any mountain biking.
I started it, yeah,
And
in Oregon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had some of the first bikes. They were all rigid little,
Yeah, no rock shocks and that.
none of that, man. And the tires were still just,
Yeah.
a couple of inches, and 26-inch wheels. Now they're 29, so everything's changed.
So you became one of the players.
And it's a level. So you
Okay.
sign up with an organization and you start going to sanctioned races.
Okay.
And you start as a class 5 and you do those races. If you do really well, you move up to 4, 3, 2. The pro level, pro amateur is a Cat 1
Okay.
level. And God's grace, I moved up quickly and I won a lot of the races as a 5, 4, 3. And then the category 2 is kind of like, those are guys are really serious, and those are hard and long races, and showed some promise and did well there. I won a lot of local races and then won the state championships one year as kind of a real dark horse. Like I was in with all the favorites, but it was kind of a race of attrition, and I don't know,
Yeah.
God's favor. I won the state championship, and then that put my name kind of on the map, and then I became a target. And so it was a lot harder to win races after that because of the strategy. Guys will box you in, and they'll get in front of you and make it where you can't sprint. They'll close you out. If you try to
Some teammates may close you out, so another teammate, or was it all solo?
no, you're on a team.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and I'd started a Christian bike racing team, the Athletes in Action team by then. So we had our own jerseys, and everybody knew, oh, those were the Christian guys or whatever, So we were trying to reach out to people through our team.
Yep.
We did summer projects. We traveled around the United States and went to all the biggest amateur races. We did outreaches. We eventually took a team to Europe and traveled around and did races in Europe.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah. So my athletic trajectory was pretty sharp and steep.
Yep.
And so won states, went to regional championships, placed really well. I went to the nationals, did well. I went to the Olympic trials. That's when I hung out with Lance Armstrong. And
What year was
that? That would have been 92. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was an Olympic year.
And this was leading up to you carrying it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Carried the torch.
How did you get chosen to tell the viewers on that? Like, yeah, you made it to the Olympic team trials. You were there with Armstrong. Tell us a little bit more about that time and what that looked like. And
Yeah. Well, one of the guys that was on our Christian team won the Olympic trials that year, the race, and I worked with him to help him win. Like all the strategy came into play. And so he was a dark horse too. He wasn't on the Olympic committee's selection who they thought it was going to be, but he ends up going to represent the United States in Barcelona. So that was pretty cool.
yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Great kind of sub story there.
Yeah.
But I came back. I won our state championships a second year in a row, and then helped a teammate win the third year. And so it was pretty, whether you call it God's favor or whatever, it was pretty cool that this kind of dark horse, small, underfunded group of guys, believers,
Yeah.
were doing really well compared to some of the local teams that had a lot of sponsorship from the big bike shops who were giving bikes and kits and team stuff and everything. And so we did really well. But in the summer, or let's see, no, in the spring of 1996, that was the Atlanta Olympic Games.
Sure.
And they were going to carry the torch around all the United States. So there was a torch relay. A lot of it was people running with it. There were people on horseback carrying it. And they were going to have some cyclists carry it into the state capital of Oregon. And someone nominated me, I guess, because I'd been dominating some of the cycling at that time for the state. And they said Dusty Davis. And I got, this was old school. I got a letter in the mail on Olympic stationery that said, "You've been chosen to carry the Olympic torch into the state capitol on a furnished bicycle." Have this holster thing for the torch, and somebody else is bringing it into the state, and there'll be people running it and everything. So
How far did you carry it? Like what?
I think it was like maybe 30 miles or something. We picked it up in the country outside of Corvallis, Oregon somewhere, and me and another buddy of mine carried the torch, like we had the torch on my bike on this little holster thing.
That sucker like propane? How was it being?
Yeah, it was a propane torch. Yeah, and we actually got to keep the torch.
Really?
Yeah, I have it in my house currently.
Is that sucker hot?
It was like that cool propane. I mean, the thing was hot. You could tell it burned
Yeah.
back there, but
Were you worried about it going out? Like, how did
it
you?
was a little bit, well, ironically, I think once it went into Portland, it was raining and some dude slipped, the torch went down, and I think it went out and they had a quick, reignite it, have the backup torch. Shit.
They set the thing on fire again.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool that you carried it for 30 miles. I didn't know it was that far.
Yeah.
I knew that you had carried the torch.
Yeah.
I just never had known how.
And there was a whole convoy, they had, there were these cool little state trooper BMWs.
Oh, really?
That had the Georgia peaches on them. Like they were Georgia state troopers that had been assigned to do the torch relay that was going around the United States. It was hidden like all these states. So it started in Atlanta, and then it made this big loop around the United States. And then it was going to culminate when they came back into Atlanta, and whoever was the torch.
Yeah.
I don't guess it was Muhammad Ali, but somebody, somebody did the final light into the stadium.
That's cool, Dusty.
Yeah, it was fun.
At that point in 96,
Yep.
at that point, how many children were born?
All of them.
All of them were.
We had
that point.
3 kids.
Yeah.
Little kids. So we've got some family photos of me taking the torch and holding little babies and wife there and everybody, and it was fun.
So 8 years, 88 to 96, something like that. 8 or 9 years, something like that. When you first came to Eugene to that point.
Yeah.
Like.
Maybe that AIA did a big outreach at those Olympics.
Okay.
And so we had a lot of, I think that they were VHS cassettes with testimonies of Olympic athletes, and we were handing them out in the Olympic Village. And were you working that at that time? Yeah.
No.
So anyway.
It was before my time.
Yeah, it was at Georgia Tech.
Yeah. So you actually came to the Olympics and wrote that yourself?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we had some access passes into the Olympic Village, and we're doing chapels for different teams and countries.
Oh, that's cool, man. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yep.
All right. So 96, you're at your life. You got a couple kids. What's it sort of look like other than carrying an Olympic torch for you? Like, what were your days filled with at that age? How old were you at that age?
I'm not good at math.
40-something, mid-40s?
No, I think we're still 30s for sure.
So late,
young kid life.
Okay. Yeah. So what was it like?
Early 30s.
I mean,
Yeah.
just
I thought the ministry, we'd had a lot of roadblocks. It was a very, University of Oregon was super liberal. Part of the administration didn't want to have anything to do with anything Christian, organized religion. There were all kind of protests going on campus. Just lots of causes. Still a lot of the hippie, Grateful Dead culture that you think about associated with Eugene, Oregon.
yeah,
But the athletic department was different than the rest of the campus, which I think you find on a lot of the campuses. Had its own subculture. The Nike influence was starting to pour some money into recruiting and facilities. Things were kind of shifting and changing. At that time, we started working with the football team a lot, basketball. I had teamed up with an African American pastor that was on town that had a great voice and a commanding personality. And we just, all of a sudden, the inroads into the athletic department really started cracking open. And we saw the starting quarterback give his life over to the Lord. And then he takes the team that had been kind of mediocre athletic wise. We started winning it was called the Pac-10 back then.
okay.
We won the Pac-10 championships. We go to play in the Rose Bowl. He gets a national audience to share his faith, comes back, and every youth group in the state wanted him to come speak after that.
Who was that?
Danny O'Neill was his name.
Okay.
And he was a Southern California hotshot, undersized quarterback that was just a commanding leader for the team.
Outstanding.
We saw a lot of guys come to the Lord. It was really cool. And some of the coaching staff began to embrace what we were doing on campus and invited us to come in. And we had the pizza feeds and any kind of outreach we could do. Danny and a bunch of his teammates that had become believers went in and started speaking to all the fraternities on campus after the big Rose Bowl stuff was shaken down. And
Yeah.
it was just kind of a really fun, open time.
Right on.
Yes.
Let's take a break. We'll get back into this.
Yes.
This is a good segue. We're going to take a break. If you haven't subscribed, hit the red button, subscribe to it, and we'll be back for some more conversation.